The rain fell over Seoul as if the sky mourned something the men hadn't yet grasped. Each drop that hit the rooftop glass seemed to herald a silent change, an omen shrouded in melancholy. Inside the spacious office, the clock's chime echoed with cruel precision. 10:30 at night, the time when regrets often awaken. CEO Kang Kyung-soo gazed at the city below, his gaze lost between the skyscrapers that reflected the glory of his empire and the abyss of his loneliness. In his hands, his wife Yoon Soo-yeon's silver necklace shimmered in the cold light. It was a simple, unostentatious piece of jewelry, yet charged with meaning. The symbol of a love that had promised to be eternal and that now, silently, was beginning to die. The wind blew through the glass walls and made the curtains dance, as if trying to whisper something he refused to hear. Kyung-soo was the picture of success, imposing, feared, meticulous. But beneath that impeccable suit lay a heart that no longer remembered tenderness. The image of Soo-yeon wearing that necklace for the first time haunted him like a ghost. Her smile, shy and full of faith, contrasted with the man he had become, someone who traded touch for contracts and love for control. Through the hallways of the house, Soo-yeon walked with light, almost transparent steps. There was a tragic delicacy in her gestures, the kind of calm that only women who have given up on being heard learn to master. She watched her husband from afar, trying to recognize the man who once swore to love her above profits and goals. Each time she touched the necklace around his neck, it was as if she were trying to rekindle a flame that time had already suffocated. That night, she entered the office with a cup of hot tea. The necklace slipped from her fingers and fell to the floor, making a soft sound that cut through the air like a confession. Kyung-soo picked it up hesitantly, unsure if it was a gesture of care or guilt. When he looked at Soo-yeon, he found a mixture of love and weariness in her eyes, and in that brief moment before she left, he felt something rare. Fear. Fear of emptiness, fear of loss, fear that that necklace would one day return to remind him of the price of everything he chose to forget. But fate has its own ways of revenge, some subtle, some ruthless. And when a man sells love in exchange for power, what happens when love decides to come back to claim what is his? If this story has already piqued your curiosity, subscribe now and activate the bell to follow every twist and turn. Leave a like if you want to find out how far this necklace can still change their fate. The city of Seoul dawned as a shining stage for the powerful, and Kang Kyung-soo was the absolute protagonist of this spectacle. His name was plastered across the covers of business magazines, investors revered him as a genius, and his every word was accepted as law within the Hansol Group, the conglomerate he had built from nothing. But behind the lenses of success and the flashbulbs that followed him at gala events, there was a man who was beginning to hide within his own persona. The impeccable suit, the calculated smile, and the firm gestures were merely armor to disguise the void that was growing between power and loneliness. The meetings stretched late, the numbers grew, but his heart shrank. Dinners with ministers, million-dollar contracts, and parties celebrating yet another achievement no longer excited him. Everything was repetitive, smiling faces out of interest, toasts out of convenience, applause out of fear. Kyung-soo was surrounded by people, but none of them truly saw him. There was something tragic about the way he moved among the crowds. Everyone wanted a piece of his glory, but no one cared about the price he paid for it. About that, Yoon Soo-yeon remained on the fringes of this empire. At luxurious events, she appeared at his side as an elegant but nearly invisible figure. She dressed soberly, spoke little, and endured the curious glances of businessmen's wives who whispered behind her back. It was as if she had been molded to fit within the silence, and yet there was a dignity in the way she endured that world of appearances. People saw her as a cold, distant woman, but the truth is, she merely harbored within herself a love that no longer found space to exist. Deep down, Kyung-soo sensed this. He knew her smile was no longer the same, that her eyes had lost the sparkle that had enchanted him in the early years of their marriage. But every time he thought about getting closer, something paralyzed him. Perhaps the fear of facing his own guilt, or the arrogance of someone who believes he can always fix everything later. And so, he postponed the inevitable, pushing love to the back of his mind until only routine and silence remained. One such evening, during a corporate dinner, he noticed Soo-yeon talking to one of the directors. There was a gentle smile on her face, a smile he no longer remembered causing. For a moment, something inside him twitched, but before he could allow himself to feel it, an advisor's voice called out to him, and the spell was broken. Back at the head table, he toasted politicians, laughed with investors, and signed contracts, unaware that with each glass of champagne raised, his soul grew farther from home. That was the essence of the empire he had built. Everything glittered, but nothing was real. Luxury was the disguise of weariness. Wealth was the veil of regret. And amidst so much gold and crystal, love, the only treasure that could not be bought, began to fade without witnesses. Fate, however, never allows emptiness to last forever, and it was in the midst of one of these glamorous nights that a new presence crossed Kyung-soo's path, a woman who would bring back the fire he thought he'd lost, but who, in reality, would be the beginning of his personal hell. And when she entered that room, wearing a red dress that seemed to hurt the air, his world began to crumble. Without him realizing it, she appeared like a lightning bolt cutting through the calm sky of a gala night. Han Ji-min, the new international marketing director of Hansol Group, walked among the guests with the confidence of someone who knew all eyes were on her. Her red dress, fitted to her body with almost cruel precision, contrasted with the formal and sober surroundings. The shine of the fabric seemed to defy morals, and her every step sounded like a promise of danger. When her gaze met his, Kang Kyung-soo, for an instant time seemed to cease. There was no love there, only curiosity, power, and a silent spark of destruction about to begin. Kyung-soo, accustomed to dominating everything and everyone, found himself intrigued. Ji-min didn't treat him like the others. There was no submissiveness in her gestures, nor reverence in her voice. She subtly teased him, smiled wryly, and looked away like someone playing a game they already know how to win. And he, so rational, so accustomed to controlling others, began to feel like he was being led, slowly, skillfully, by her. As the camera flashes captured the image of the powerful CEO next to the mysterious woman in red, Soo-yeon watched from a distance, trying to pretend not to see what she already sensed. Ji-min was Soo-yeon's opposite in every way. Where the wife represented calm and devotion, the mistress personified fire and audacity. Within days, she became the talk of the hallways. Her name, whispered at meetings and discreet dinners. There was something intoxicating about her presence, a blend of beauty, intelligence, and manipulation that aroused both admiration and envy. Kyung-soo began meeting her more frequently, under the pretense of discussing market strategies, but the conversations soon became confessions disguised as business deals. She knew how to make him feel alive, how to inflate the wounded ego of a man who no longer recognized himself in the mirror. The necklace that lay forgotten on Soo-yeon's vanity began to symbolize the distance between them. She still wore it silently, as a way of resisting her husband's indifference. He, however, beside Ji-min, felt renewed, not by love, but by the addiction to novelty. Her laughter, her striking perfume, and her defiant gaze made him feel desired, powerful and invincible again. But every sense of power, when born of pride, carries the bitter taste of downfall. One winter night, Jimin approached him during a corporate event. Wineglass in hand, she whispered in his ear, "You look prettier when you're out of control." The sentence disarmed him. For the first time, Kyung-soo allowed himself to smile genuinely, unaware that he had just signed his own heart's sentence. As the lights flickered and the music played, Soo-yeon discreetly left the room, gasping for air. And at that moment, the necklace around her neck glowed, as if it too knew it was about to be betrayed. But what Kyung-soo didn't know yet was that behind Han Ji-min's charm lay an ambition that wasn't content with just love. She wanted the throne, and she would do anything to take it. The days that followed were like a slow poison dissolving what was left of love inside the glass house where Kang Kyung-soo and Yoon Soo-yeon they lived. Their conversations became short, their meals silent, and their gazes, once tender, now shifted away from each other, as if ashamed of what they had become. He left earlier and earlier, returned later and later, and the scent that accompanied him was no longer hers. Soo-yeon understood everything, but didn't say a word. She knew that confrontation at that moment would not bring back the man she had loved, but would awaken the monster that power had created. In the office, away from the cameras and the watchful eyes of the shareholders, Kyung-soo and Han Ji-min, they lived a relationship as intense as it was dangerous. She was skilled at turning desire into dependence. All it took was a perfectly timed phrase, a calculated touch, and he'd forget the world, forget Soo-yeon, forget who he was. Jimin made him believe he was alive, when in reality he was slowly drowning in the illusion of a love that never existed. She wanted more than his heart. She wanted what he represented: power, name, prestige, and Kyung-soo, blinded by admiration, gave her everything she asked for, except what truly mattered. At home, Soo-yeon continued to carry out her role with dignity. She set the table, waited for dinner, glanced at the clock, and smiled sadly each time the hand passed the hour he'd promised to return. In her bedroom, the necklace rested on the vanity, still carrying the soft glow of better times. Sometimes she would put it around her neck and observe her reflection in the mirror, a woman who still believed in love, but who was beginning to understand that love alone doesn't save anyone. The silence of the apartment was broken only by the sound of the clock, marking each second of a betrayal that didn't need to be spoken. One night he came home with a tired face and a distant look in his eyes. As he took off his jacket, Soo-yeon asked in a calm voice, "Are we still what we promised to be?" Kyung-soo didn't answer. She just looked away and left the room. The answer, crueler than any words, hung in the air. She then removed the necklace and placed it back on the vanity, as if returning something that no longer belonged to her. The next morning, he returned to work and found Jimin waiting for him. She teased him with a smile and, in a bold gesture, grabbed his tie, saying, "A man like you was not born to live, trapped in memories." Kyung-soo just looked at her, and in that instant he decided he was right. Love had become a memory too precious to keep. Meanwhile, Soo-yeon watched from the window as her husband's black car disappeared down the avenue. The necklace, forgotten, still gleamed in the morning light. And it was in this glow that fate hid the first shadow of what was to come. Because before the guilt could catch up with him, Kyung-soo would make the mistake that would seal his fate. He would sell the symbol of love to buy his own ruin. That week, snow began to fall over Seoul, as if winter wanted to cover the city's sins with a white blanket. The cold was biting, but nothing compared to the chill that already inhabited the heart of Kang Kyung-soo. The marriage was in ruins, and love had become an uncomfortable memory. That's when Han Ji-min, one afternoon at the office, commented with the calculated tone of someone planting a poisonous seed, You never gave me anything that was really your. Those words echoed in his mind for days. The man who had everything material but nothing intimate felt challenged. Jimin wanted all of him, or at least she wanted proof that he would put her above all else. So, between a sip of whiskey and a tense silence, Kyung-soo glanced at the wedding photo on his desk. There, in the portrait, Soo-yeon smiled, wearing the silver necklace that now rested forgotten on the vanity. It was the only object he himself had chosen for her, years ago. The only symbol that held truth. And that was precisely why he decided to get rid of it. The next morning, Kyung-soo walked through the streets of Insadong, the antiques district. The windows displayed memories that no longer belonged to anyone. When he entered an old merchant's shop, the smell of old wood and oxidized silver enveloped him like an omen. He took the necklace from his pocket and placed it on the counter. The owner regarded it with a puzzled look. Perhaps he had sensed that the object carried more than metal and stones. Perhaps he had sensed the spiritual weight that accompanied it. "It's a rare piece," said the seller. "It belonged to someone who loved it very much." Kyung-soo took a deep breath, impatient. No more. He took the money, pocketed it, and left without looking back. The camera of fate, however, seemed to follow him. As the antique shop door slowly closed, as if sealing an invisible pact. Outside, Jimin was waiting for him in the black car, dressed in the same provocative red. He handed her a small box. Inside, a diamond ring glinted in the cold daylight. "It's yours now," he said, trying to smile. Jimin kissed him with satisfaction, and in that kiss there was more ambition than affection, more conquest than tenderness. Meanwhile, at home, Soo-yeon realized the necklace was missing. She searched every drawer, every souvenir, but there was nothing left. She sat at her vanity and felt an emptiness that no words could fill. It was as if a part of her soul had been ripped away without warning. She didn't know it, but that gesture, simple and cruel, would mark the end of what remained of purity between them. In the car, while Jimin admired the ring he'd just placed on her finger, Kyung-soo stared out the window. The city's reflection mingled with his face, and something in his gaze betrayed a shadow beginning to grow. The ring shone, but illuminated nothing. The powerful man, who always believed he controlled everything, had just signed the most expensive contract of his life. Because by selling that necklace, he didn't just get rid of a symbol. He sold the link that still connected him to redemption, the last vestige of love that protected him from his own destruction. And fate, silent and patient, just watched, preparing the blow that would come when he least expected it. Winter continued relentlessly, and the cold that dominated Seoul seemed to have also settled inside the house. Kang Kyung-soo. Silence had become a permanent guest, and the walls, once adorned with laughter and memories, now echoed only the distant sound of the wind hitting the windows. Yoon Soo-yeon, once the beating heart of that home, walked through the rooms like a shadow. The servants avoided meeting his gaze. They knew something had changed. They knew that the love that sustained that home had died. Without a wake, Kyung-soo, meanwhile, sank deeper and deeper into his new addiction, the power and intoxicating presence of Han Ji-min. The necklace that symbolized the beginning of his relationship with Soo-yeon was long gone, sold, forgotten, lost in unknown hands. Now the diamond ring shone on his lover's hand, and it was this glow, cold and artificial, that the CEO carried as a trophy of a triumph he didn't realize was his own defeat. Jimin consumed him little by little, transforming him into a different man, distant, more arrogant and insensitive than ever. At home, Soo-yeon no longer cried. The tears had dried, replaced by a frightening serenity, the calm that only exists in those who have given up fighting. One night, she waited for him until late. The clock had passed midnight when Kyung-soo entered, his suit wrinkled, the scent of another perfume lingering on his skin. She watched him from the stairs, motionless. "You sold the necklace, didn't you?" he asked, in a low, almost sweet voice. Kyung-soo, surprised, paused for a moment. He didn't answer. He simply looked away and went upstairs, leaving her there, alone, with the confirmation that he already knew. That morning, Soo-yeon opened one of the drawers and found an old photo. The two of them, younger, smiling in front of the sea, the silver necklace glinting around her neck. She ran her finger over the image, as if wanting to recapture the touch of a time that would never return. She folded the photo carefully and placed it in a small box. By dawn, the bed next to Kyung-soo was empty. No letter, no note, no goodbye. Just silence, her faint perfume, and a still warm cup of tea on the table. For the next few days, he pretended not to care. He told himself she would come back, that it was just an emotional reaction. But as the weeks turned into months, the emptiness began to bother him in a way that not even Jimin could fill. The windows seemed darker, the hallways longer, the sound of his own breathing heavier. The man who had been everything was now beginning to be consumed by something money couldn't buy: guilt. Soo-yeon disappeared without a trace. No friend could tell where she went. No record of her was ever found. It was as if the world had decided to hide her from him. And it was in this silent disappearance that Kyung-soo's empire began to crumble, not from the outside, but from within. Because before the financial collapse arrived, fate would take care of collecting what he owed: his soul. And the price would be too high for someone who believed he could buy everything. The first signs of the downfall came discreetly, almost imperceptibly. A report with incoherent figures, a meeting that ended in uncomfortable silence, a look of distrust among directors who had previously bowed. Kang Kyung-soo, who had always been the cornerstone of Hansol Group, now felt the ground shake beneath his feet. The headlines that had previously extolled him began to change tone. Financial irregularities, corruption allegations, investment misappropriation. The same press that had applauded him now devoured him with thirst. Within the empire, Han Ji-min. She didn't seem worried. She watched the chaos with the same enigmatic smile of someone who could already foresee the outcome. Little by little, she withdrew from meetings, discreetly transferred funds, and covered her tracks. When prosecutors knocked on the company door, Kyung-soo realized too late. She had used his name, his accounts, his trust. Everything he had built was now in ruins, not because of the competition, but because of the woman he thought he loved. Loneliness took hold. The phone, which had once rang incessantly, now remained silent. His business partners disappeared, his friends became strangers, and the name that once opened doors now echoed in empty hallways. He tried to convince himself he could rise again, but something inside him already knew. He no longer had the strength, the faith, or the soul to start over. The empire he had built with such pride was crumbling, and with it fell the man who had believed himself untouchable. In the sleepless nights, Kyung-soo saw the reflection of his own decay in the windows of his empty apartment. Whiskey had become his substitute for prayers, and silence his only interlocutor. The memories of Soo-yeon returned with an almost physical force. The sound of her laughter, the touch of her delicate hands, the necklace he had sold without hesitation. Now, regret was the necklace around his neck, heavy, suffocating, impossible to remove. Across the city, Han Ji-min was living his own spectacle. The woman who had bewitched him now enjoyed other company in other rooms with another powerful man. When Kyung-soo found out, he didn't scream. He just laughed, a bitter laugh of someone who realizes too late that he was just a pawn in a larger game. She had destroyed him as elegantly as she had seduced him. The following days were a parade of Foreclosures, lawsuits, and public humiliations. Hansol Group crumbled to dust. The luxury penthouse was sold, the cars repossessed, the security guards dismissed, and for the first time in years, Kyung-soo walked the streets unrecognized, just another ordinary man among the bustling crowds. But fate, merciless, still had one last irony in store. For as he wandered, lost among ruins and regrets, something, or someone, watched from afar, ready to cross his path again. And it would be in this journey between despair and oblivion that the necklace, missing for years, would shine again. Not as an ornament, but as a call from destiny. The streets of Seoul were no longer recognizable Kang Kyung-soo. The man who once dominated corporate boardrooms now shuffled between alleys and cheap cafes, his overcoat wrinkled and his gaze lost. Time had transformed him into a living ghost, the kind of man people avoid looking at for fear of seeing their own future. On a grey morning, staggering between cold and despondency, Kyung-soo collapsed outside a small community clinic in Mapgu. He fell like a body without an owner, without a name, without worthy memories. When he opened his eyes, the smell of antiseptic and the distant sound of monitors surrounded him. A nurse approached gently, bringing him a glass of water. The gesture was simple, but there was something about the woman that disconcerted him. Around her neck was a silver necklace, the same delicate design, the same soft glow he'd sworn he'd forgotten. For a moment, time stood still. Her voice was hoarse, almost a whisper. Where did you get that?" The nurse, surprised, touched the necklace and replied naturally, "It was a gift from a lady who helped found this shelter years ago. She said this necklace has already saved a life and that it might save others too." Kyung-soo's heart raced. The air seemed to drain away. His mind, previously numb with guilt, awakened in despair. The necklace, the same necklace he'd sold at an antique shop, the same one that represented everything he'd betrayed. How had it ended up there? Was fate mocking him? The nurse noticed his shock and, confused, asked if he was okay. He simply nodded, trembling, and asked to know more about the woman. "Is she still alive?" he asked, trying to contain the urgency in his voice. The nurse smiled and replied, "Yes, she lives in Busan and works at a children's shelter. Her name is Yoon Soo-yeon." It was as if the world stopped. The sound, the light, the air, everything vanished for a second. Soo-yeon, the name he hadn't heard in years, the name that echoed in every regret, every sleepless night. He tried to get up, but his weak body prevented him. Still, a greater force drove him, the need to see her, to ask for forgiveness, to touch the past before it was too late. As the doctor recommended rest, he only thought about the impossible coincidence. The necklace he had sold now shone on the neck of a stranger, guiding him back to the woman he had once loved and destroyed. Fate does not forget. It merely waits for the right moment to close the cycle. That night, from his hospital bed, he looked up at the ceiling and murmured, "Soo-yeon, is there still time to save me?" The snow was falling again outside, silent and slow, covering the city like a blanket of redemption. But when he decided to look for her, he never imagined that the reunion would not only bring memories, it would also bring the truth that would change everything he thought he knew about the past. The journey to Busan was long and silent. The train glided along the snow-covered tracks, and the reflection of the cold landscape in the glass seemed to follow the distant gaze of Kang Kyung-soo. He carried only a worn coat and a heart too heavy. With each passing season, the regret weighed more heavily. Her name echoed in his mind like a broken prayer. Soo-yeon. Soo-yeon. The name of the woman he hurt, the name that time refused to erase. When he reached the shelter, the rusty gate creaked as if it too held secrets. Children played in the courtyard, laughing in the pale morning sun. The innocent sound contrasted with the pain that accompanied it. He approached slowly, hesitantly, fearing what he would find. And then, in the distance, he saw a kneeling figure tying a little girl's coat. Her black hair was now streaked with silver, but the gesture was the same. Delicate, serene, filled with a tenderness he never forgot. It was her, Yoon Soo-yeon. Kyung-soo stood still, as if time itself were watching him. She stood, and when she saw him, it took her a few seconds to recognize him. His face was lined with guilt, his eyes tired and filled with regret. Yet there was a trace of the man she had loved there. She didn't move. He took a step, then another, until their voices met in the chilly air. "Soo-yeon," he said, almost breathless, "I looked for you." She just responded with a fragile smile, the kind of smile that comes from someone who has already learned to forgive before even hearing the request. There was nothing to look for, Kyung-soo. What was lost sometimes needs to stay lost. He tried to explain, justify, talk about the regret that consumed him, but she interrupted him with the calm of someone who already understood everything. "You sold that necklace thinking you were getting rid of me, but it was what I needed to free myself." Those words hit him harder than any accusation. He watched her tend to a child, cleanse. Her face and smile, as if the pain had been transformed into compassion. It was another kind of richness, one he'd never known. When the day ended, she came over and placed something in his hands, a small photograph, the two of them, young, smiling by the sea. "Keep it if you want. But remember, forgiveness doesn't give you back time. It only prevents hate from aging us." Kyung-soo lowered his eyes, unable to hold back the tears. The cold wind swept through the courtyard, and the silver necklace around his neck shone once more, as if fate had recognized him. In that moment he understood that love doesn't fade with time. It just changes form, and sometimes comes back to teach us what we struggled to learn. But fate had not yet revealed everything, because that same necklace, forgotten and rediscovered, hid a secret capable of changing the course of his life forever. In the days following the reunion, Kang Kyung-soo began to visit the shelter frequently. There was no rush in his conversations with Soo-yeon, just a comfortable silence, the kind of silence that arises when words can no longer mend what's been broken. He helped with simple tasks, fixing windows, carrying boxes, reading stories to the children. Little by little, this man, accustomed to signing billion-dollar contracts, began to rediscover the value of small gestures. Still, something unsettled him. There was one detail he didn't understand: why that necklace, lost so many years ago, had returned to her hands. One afternoon, as the golden light of sunset streamed across the courtyard, Soo-yeon removed the necklace from her neck and placed it in the palm of his hand. The metal caught the light, and for a moment, it seemed to burn. "That necklace, it's always belonged to you," she said, looking him in the eye. "But what it holds inside now belongs to both of us." Kyung-soo frowned, uncomprehending. Then she opened the small clasp on the jewelry, revealing a tiny cavity. Inside was a memory chip, protected by a thin silver plate. "When I discovered what you were facing years ago, I knew I had to keep this," she continued. "This chip contains copies of the documents that prove your innocence. The corruption at Hansel was orchestrated by others. I tried to warn you, but you had already disappeared." The shock was devastating. He felt his legs buckle, his chest tighten. Everything he had lost, his reputation, his empire, his dignity, could have been saved if not for his own blindness. And now, ironically, the very necklace he had sold out of vanity emerged as the only proof capable of restoring his truth. It was fate, cruel and merciful at the same time. giving him back the chance for rebirth. With Su Yon's help, he presented the evidence to the authorities. The names of the true culprits came to light, and the scandal that had destroyed him was rewritten before the nation's eyes. When the verdict was announced, acquitting him, Kyung-soo didn't celebrate. There was no victory, only relief. He looked at Su-yeon, and what he saw wasn't romantic love, but something greater, the compassion born of a soul that has learned to forgive. That evening, as they walked through the shelter's courtyard, the wind blew lightly, carrying the scent of newly planted flowers. He watched her smile at a child and felt the weight of the past finally lift. He took the necklace, now restored, and returned it to her hands. "That necklace saved my life," he said, "but it was your heart that saved who I was." Su-yeon just smiled. "Then keep what you've learned and live what's left." They said goodbye under the dark blue sky, and in that moment, Kyung-soo realized that forgiveness doesn't erase scars. It turns them into memories that prevent us from making the same mistake again. But although justice had acquitted him, there still remained the sentence that only time could fulfill: the price of forgiveness and the loneliness that comes when love decides to move on without us. In the months following the acquittal, Kang Kyung-soo, he walked the streets of Seoul again, but nothing seemed the same. The city that had once revered him now seemed vast and indifferent. The buildings still stood tall, the lights still shone, but the power he had so idolized had lost its meaning. For the first time in decades, he walked without bodyguards, without a phone, without a destination, only with the memory of Yoon Soo-yeon and the necklace that now rested again around her neck. The feeling of freedom, however, was accompanied by a bitter emptiness. He had regained his name, but not his love. Soo-yeon's forgiveness had been genuine yet distant, the kind of forgiveness that doesn't restore what was lost, only closes the cycle. She remained in the shelter in Busan, devoted to the children, serene as a harbor where time no longer hurried. He, on the other hand, wandered like an exile from his own history, trying to understand why fate had given him a second chance, but not the right to start over with her. One afternoon, he decided to see her one last time. He arrived at the shelter as the sun was setting on the horizon, tinting the sky orange and gold. Soo-yeon was sitting in the garden, reading a story to the children. When she saw him, she closed the book and stared at him in silence. He approached slowly, as if each step were an apology. "I came to thank you," he said softly. "You gave me back more than a name. You gave me back what was left of my soul." She smiled, but her eyes held the calm wisdom of someone who has learned not to dwell on the past. Kyung-soo, forgiveness is a gift we give to others, but it serves, first and foremost, to free ourselves. Her words struck him like an inescapable truth. He tried to take her hands, but she gently took them away. "Time did what I couldn't. It erased the pain. Now I belong to another mission, and you to your own path." The wind blew between them, lifting dry leaves and carrying with it any hope of rekindling what had been destroyed. He understood finally that their love had not died. It had merely transformed into something that no longer fit into the same body, the same life. As he walked back to the station, the rain began to fall. Light, almost symbolic. Each drop that touched his face felt like a belated blessing, a silent baptism of repentance and peace. He stopped for a moment, looked up at the sky and smiled through teary eyes. The silver necklace hung across her chest, reflecting the glow of the city lights. But fate, ever poetic, still held one final gesture in store, an end that would not be one of pain, but rather of legacy. Because even when love fades, karma never ends without a final act of redemption. The years passed with the lightness of a resigned wind. Kang Kyung-soo never returned to business, nor did he seek the power that once blinded him. Instead, he devoted himself to something new, a foundation to support orphans and widows, named Hansol. Foundation for Hope, created in silent tribute to the woman who taught him to love the simple things again. The same man who once commanded boardrooms now swept courtyards, served meals, and read stories to children, finding a fragment of peace in every smile. His fame was lost, but his soul was finally cleansed. Yoon Soo-yeon in Busan continued her work at the shelter. One day, she received a letter, handwritten in shaky but firm handwriting. Inside the envelope was a small donation, accompanied by a sentence, "You were my last lesson and my first miracle." She smiled silently, tucked the letter away next to the old photograph of them from their youth, and gazed at the horizon, where the sea lapped against the rocks with the same serenity as before. Love, she thought, never ends. It merely changes form, waiting for the right moment to transform into gratitude. One golden evening, one of the shelter children found something in a box of donations sent by the foundation. A restored silver necklace glistening in the sunlight. When she brought it to Soo-yeon, she held it for a few seconds, feeling a familiar shiver. She placed it around the girl's neck and said with a calm smile, "This necklace has already saved a life. Now it will protect yours." Fate's invisible camera slowly pulled away, revealing the courtyard lit by children's laughter and the sea in the background, reflecting the reddish sky. The cycle was complete. Love and regret had become a legacy, and the necklace, a symbol of broken and healed promises, shined again, not as a reminder of pain, but as proof that karma, when fulfilled, returns to the heart what it has learned to deserve. And as the stage lights went out, the narrator's voice echoed serenely. True love is not lost. It just waits for the right moment to save us. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel right now. Here, each story carries a destiny, and each destiny holds a lesson about love, regret, and new beginnings. Activate the bell, share this video, and stay with us for future stories, because sometimes what fate takes away, it brings back in a way you never imagined.